What up? This is a Patreon exclusive podcast, and the odds are it's the last podcast I'm going to record in the year 2016 because this is now New Year's Eve. I am live streaming on YouNow, so while I record this, you may see me or hear me react to some comments from the audience. I think that's cool because I think it enriches the podcast. It makes it a little bit more lively and spontaneous. Something spontaneously. So a member called Boartown, who is an example of a vegan who's joining the military, we may have him on in the future. We may have a podcast with him after he gets back from basic training. I've talked to quite a few vegans in and out of military service, vegans and vegetarians, truth be told, who talked about the difficulty of being vegan in the Army. It's an issue that's come up a few times on this channel. But he just said the annoying thing about soy milk is that it's hard to find it unsweetened. So I have a long list of things to talk about in this podcast. However, spontaneously kicking it off with this, one of the funny things that comes up in veganism again and again, is when we have kind of unstated extra requirements that we've added onto veganism. Like, it's not good enough that you're vegan. You also have to live up to this standard to be a real vegan. And I mean, I know some people on the internet do that like intentionally and consciously. Like, they actually propose you're not a real vegan if you buy clothing that's made in a factory. Something like that. They've added something on and they actually articulate it. They express it as part of their philosophy. But there's also a habit of mind you can fall into where without, pardon me, I'm still sick. Without really thinking it through, without really being aware of it, you've added on some extra requirements to veganism, right? So like one woman at my school, she was sort of like the executive director of my school, the boss at my school in Kunming. She was vegan, but I remember just spontaneously, without being able to help herself, I mentioned that I was surviving by drinking a lot of soy milk, which was true at the time. All the fat in my diet. And most of the protein was coming from soy milk. Powdered, you buy the powdered soy milk and mix it up. And she said to me, yes, but does it have sugar added? Like, is it soy milk with sugar added? And you can see without really thinking about it, without thinking all the way through, in her mind, real vegans drank soy milk with no sugar added. And I remember saying to her, I can't read Chinese that well. I said, well, yeah, to my knowledge, I've read the package and reading it in Chinese. I believe this has no sugar in it. And I got the package and showed it to her. And she looked at the package and she was like, yeah, okay. Like, this is real. So it's funny. There were only a few other words exchanged, but I could see in her mind, real vegans drink sugar-free soy milk. Now, maybe that's because she's aware that, most sugar is not vegan. Most sugar is made with bone char. There are elements of animal products are used in refining the sugar. It's actually to do with the color and texture of the sugar. It may be for that reason that she felt vegans should avoid buying products that have sugar added to it. It may be out of a health basis. You don't know. But I could absolutely see in her mind this was a test about whether or not I was a real vegan. Now, God, the fact that I'm constantly uploading morality lectures about veganism to YouTube, this alone doesn't qualify me. Do you or do you not have sugar in your soy milk? Anyways, I just mentioned I'm coughing a little bit. I'm at the end of a long and pretty bad illness, actually. I was bedridden for a little while. I made a trip from Mangsha to Ruli and back again between two cities here in Dehong province. Dehong special zone. And I uploaded some photographs from that trip. If you guys don't know, I'm on an app called Nice. I've provided the link to that before. You can search for it under the name One Nice App. And Nice is basically a competitor to Instagram. And if you go and look there, you will see some photographs from that trip I made just between two cities within the same area of China. And I've had a lot of thinking lately. I reflected this in the prelude to this video, the half-hour podcast before I started recording this podcast. I've had a lot of thoughts about how I'm going to share my life in the year ahead and whether or not I should start having friends and girlfriends and more of my personal life appearing on my Instagram, which is really nice because, again, Instagram is blocked in China. I've been thinking about those things a fair bit. But also more generally, I've been struggling with the question of how I can share this beautiful place with you. Dehong itself, it really doesn't show up in photographs as well as I'd like it to. And, just to kick it off with this, very basic reflection, when you're living in a place that's famous for being beautiful, like the south of France, the south of France, each city in the south of France will have maybe one street, maybe two streets, where the government has put in the money to have palm trees, to have some beautiful, beautiful flowers, beautiful gardening. Just one street that's named after some army general, something like that, And in some ways, the most amazing thing about this part of China is that it's never just one street. Here in Mangsha, it's the whole city. Streets that are of no special importance are covered with beautiful palm trees, with beautiful gardening. Just natural beauty is surrounding you here. It's teeming around you in a way that it's really not in the south of France. And of course, the south of France is famous for having beautiful cities. Understandably so, too. But in France, normally you'll be looking at one street that's named after an army general. It's Charles de Gaulle Boulevard or, Place de la Révolution. There will be some special street that's really that beautiful and that striking, and the rest of the city is kind of junk. And here in Dehong, I commented on this photo sharing application. I commented, you can only really appreciate the beauty of this place when you appreciate not just how beautiful it is, but how utterly normal the beauty of the place is. When you appreciate the extent to which ordinary people here take it for granted, ignore it, that it just becomes part of the background noise of daily life. The astounding beauty of the place. Now, along with this podcast, I believe I can upload, at the same time, a group of photographs. I try to do it as a zip file. But on Patreon, one way or another, I'm going to share with you a bunch of photographs of just how beautiful this place is. There's one in particular I draw attention to. It's somewhere in here. But, there was one moment where it's just a construction site. There's a gap in the fence on this construction site. The construction site is not beautiful. Obviously, it's not gardened or anything. And through this gap in the fence, you can see the side of the mountains and the Golden Temple. You see this beautiful vista. Dehong is like that all the time. You can be in a muddy, ugly alleyway. You can be in a kind of unbelievably ugly construction site, and it's still beautiful. You know what I mean? It's not just the parks. It's not just the tourist attractions. You get these strikingly beautiful vistas, in a gap in the fence looking onto a construction site and what have you. That's surrounding you all the time. But anyway, I don't think I have rose-colored glasses on here. In some ways, I'm used to this. I've lived in Cambodia. I've lived in Thailand. I've lived in all these places that people consider so beautiful. And I've got to tell you, Dehong is more beautiful. This is really, genuinely, right now, one of the most beautiful places in the world. And there are no tourists here whatsoever. I'll also say, I mentioned in my apartment tour video, I am actually... Sorry, some people are complaining about the noise from the microphone. I'll try to improve that by moving the mic to one side. Some people are change of topic. Mangsha is tremendously beautiful. Dehong is tremendously beautiful. And I mentioned in the apartment tour video that I do actually drink the tap water here. I boil it first, but I do drink it. Mangsha is built on a natural hot springs. We have natural clean water coming up from the earth at all times, and there is a beautiful, beautiful swimming pool here. There are actually several. I've only visited one of them. There's a beautiful swimming pool here, larger than an Olympic-sized pool, that's filled with this water from the hot springs. So I'm going to include photographs of that for you guys on Patreon also, so you can see that. And of course, that pool, it also has a special play area for children. So I really do. I look at that swimming pool. And the swimming pool is not hot. It's not boiling hot like a hot tub. But it is hotter than a normal swimming pool. And they also have, they have different kind of hot tubs type pools. They have a special swimming pool just for children to play on and so on. And, for a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, if you go to China, you're not going to appreciate going to the museums. You're not. What a child at that age can do and appreciate is really limited. But a child could definitely appreciate swimming in that beautiful, warm pool filled with natural water from a hot springs. So I hope in the year ahead, my daughter is going to get to enjoy the natural beauty of this place. This place is not just linked to my life and my past research. It is also very strongly linked to my ex-wife's research, past, present, and future, the languages she studies. She really, as an anthropologist, she's an expert in exactly this part of the world. This is the perfect location for her. It's very helpful for her that I have a job and a base of operations here. So it makes a lot of sense for her and my daughter to come over and start spending time here. We will see. We will see what's possible into that heading. Now, okay, short-term and long-term thoughts about... so guys, some questions. Again, this is nice. I like being able to spontaneously answer some of these questions. One of the questions from Austin Sims... from Art of War. Art of War says, why do I sometimes call the city Mangsha and sometimes call it Dehong? So even on maps, there's confusion about that. Dehong is really the name of the region, of the special zone, and Mangsha is the name of the city, but people very often call the capital city the name of the region. And you will even see that listed on official maps that way sometimes. And many people do not know the name Mangsha because the name of the city actually did change. There was an official legal change to the name of the city recently to go from an artificial Chinese name to more of a natural local sounding name. And they actually had a vote on that, as I recall. They had a referendum. So the city has more than one name, and that's confusing. And then the name of the region is generally... So it would be a bit like Las Vegas. Legally speaking, actually, Las Vegas is not really Las Vegas. And it's an area. It's not really the city. There are a few different places in the world like that. We have a name for a region. Pattaya in Thailand is like that. And actually, Stanford in California. Stanford is not the name of the city. It's the name of a census-designated place. So whatever. So Dehong is generally the name you will hear used. But it is true, we use more than one name for the place. When I look up this place on the map application, it's actually, I think, Apple Maps, it gives the name as Dehong, not as Mangsha, rightly or wrongly. So you do see that around. I get another simple question from Austin Sims. Is my ex-wife vegan? Is my daughter vegan? So far as I know, my daughter has been vegan not just since birth. She has been vegan since conception. And so far as I know, my ex-wife and my daughter have remained vegan. It is possible that's changed, but if so, my ex-wife has not admitted it to me. So yeah, in that sense, I'm proud to have raised my daughter vegan. And we went through, we went through the whole pregnancy and the early childhood. During her infancy, we did a lot of research on, nutritional requirements, making sure the baby got all of the vitamins required, not just B12, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so where did I leave off? This is more spontaneous having these comments, but it also means I have to remember what I was talking about. I was talking about how beautiful Dehong is. You guys know already I have had some good news from France about that legal case. It may be that within just the next few months, I can start spending meaningful time with my daughter again. On the other hand, it may be poor timing because I'm moving ahead with the court case. And at the same time, I'm also going back to having a full-time job. So, I'm not going to have all that flexible a schedule once that job starts compared to the situation I was in before. It seems like I have only good news about Durian Rider and the court case in Thailand also. If you've been watching every single one of my videos, we've now had confirmation on that. It's not just that I know that the case is real. I know that Durian Rider knows that it's real. So, the hysterical people who are claiming the case is a fraud or something, that's become more and more of a laughingstock and not to be taken seriously. Right. Coming back to where I left off, Comment about folic acid being important in pregnancy. Yes, there's actually a long list of things you need to be concerned about with a vegan pregnancy. There are websites out there to help you. And during that time, I remember my wife, now my ex-wife, she also took the time to put some of that information on vitamins and supplements on the internet. There was just one vitamin that was impossible to get vegan, and where we had to use one supplement that contained an extract from sheep's wool. But you do your best as a vegan, and obviously if there is absolutely no alternative, if it is actually impossible to get a vegan medication that you need, then you're going to use a non-vegan one. But as I recall, there was just that one vitamin that was non-vegan, and otherwise we managed to do everything else vegan. Like for example, DHA. Although it is difficult to get DHA, DHA is a supplement that only pregnant women need to be concerned about. You can get vegan DHA, and we did. So we went through that whole process. Anyway, something you guys may or may not know about me. I have talked about it on the internet a few times. I'm at a crossroads in terms of my career, short-term and long-term crossroads. There's a lot for me to think about. What does my life in China mean right now? What does my life in China mean for my own long-term future and for my long-term vegan activism and all these other things? And again, the first half hour of this podcast, the half hour that's on YouTube, is already musing about that to some extent. One of the ideas that I've bandied about, again, this links back to the photos of Dehong that I'm sharing along with this podcast. One of the ideas that I've talked about pretty seriously with other YouTubers, with people on the internet, with people who know me in real life, I've talked about the possibility of opening my own vegan hotel. Now, there's a lot to that. In terms of investment, in terms of startup costs, would you first open a gym and then wait till you have more money and open a hotel? Would you first open a small guest house that just happens to have vegan food? There are a lot of different ways to do it. Now, this idea goes back so long. I talked about this at length, and I met with a guy who's a real expert when I was living in Taiwan, before I moved from Taiwan to Canada, and I'm still in touch with him. So I know one guy who was a real pro in exactly that field, exactly the field of taking a building and renovating it to work as a guest house or small hotel. It's a very technical field of expertise. And he's here in Asia. He speaks Chinese and English and a couple other languages. He's a priceless contact to have, and he'd be very happy to come in on that project with me. So that's one reason I was already looking into that and thinking about that several years ago. It's also something, this has been mentioned maybe a year ago on my YouTube channel. So I'm going to answer your question, guys. I am reading the comments as we do this here, but I don't want to interrupt myself in mid-sentence too much. It's also something that would be such a wonderful basis for collaboration with other vegans. If you have a small hotel, you can hold conferences. You can have meetups with other vegans. And, even some of the really softcore, silly YouTube channels about veganism, channels I don't watch, you can see that's part of what they've got going on. There are, those vegans who are based in Los Angeles. You can see they have a big house. They have some kind of venue where they can, have other people visit. I don't think any of them are doing conferences. But, having a bricks and mortar location can be a very powerful thing long term. So it could connect to vegan activism. And of course, it's also just a way to have a job that is quietly providing vegan propaganda. Obviously, you have a small hotel like that. Many of your customers will not be vegans. They'll be vegans who book a room. And then only when they eat breakfast the next morning do they realize, the breakfast has no cow milk. It only has soy milk. Like, they have cafe latte or they have cappuccino. But the cappuccino isn't made with cow milk. It's made with vegan ingredients. You'd have people who come and they say, you have ice cream, but the ice cream is vegan. And they get to try vegan ice cream. So, on a subtle level, something like a small gym, a guest house, a small hotel, a guest house, or a gym, or starting with one of those three and expanding it to the others, I've always thought that was a really powerful, really positive idea. And it's enjoyable, and it's a way to earn a living. And so for several years now, I've been really researching that and talking about that. And incidentally, let's not get too incidental here. I did actually enroll in, sorry, that's an overstatement. I spoke to and started the applications process to get a master's degree in hotel management or a master's degree in tourism, where the real focus of the degree was in hotels, so that I could formally study that business for my long-term future in that field. So while I was in Canada during the last 2 years, I didn't just I didn't just think about that in the abstract. I didn't just talk about that with people, including people who are in the industry. I also looked at, in a university context, in a formal setting, committing some of my time and money to getting credentials that would really make me more competent at that sort of job. So I have a question in the chat from Random Bike Trips. Random Bike Trips asks, where would you open this hotel or guest house at? Right. Well, thanks for the question. Obviously, I have given tremendous thought to that. And the reality is, once you have a location like that, although there are the advantages we've just been talking about, you can open the door to other vegans on YouTube, other vegan activists. So I could open the door to someone like yourself. Hit Like a Girl is in the chat room. She has her own YouTube channel. Hit Like a Girl could come and film herself at the gym at my vegan guest house. Although it's a positive thing in those ways, it also means that 110% of your time is devoted to that one spot. You are then rooted to that one spot on the map. You are going nowhere. You have no free time for yourself. 23 hours a day, you are going to be inside that business, devoted to, worrying about everything from whether or not the windows are clean, the windows, the floors, the dishes, all the details of what's going on in that business, all your time and energy going to. I have no illusions about that, right? Is that you would be pouring your time into that location. Given the background I have in Southeast Asia, the options included Taiwan, Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, and here in Yunnan. So when I was thinking about Dehong long term, this is a nice natural segue into my next topic here. I thought, well, boy, the university here was offering me 3 years of contracts. They were saying they wanted me to stay for 3 years, 5 years. They wanted me to be a professor at this university quite long term. So I thought, wow, well, if I'm teaching the same courses at the same university for 3 years or 5 years, that could be a great basis for opening a vegan hotel, right? Because if you guys don't know this about university teaching, the first year you teach a course, it's a hell of a lot of work to get started and, teach the course for the first time, get familiar with the curriculum, etc. Teaching the same course for the second time, third time, fourth time is exponentially less work. You have much more free time. And also, of course, it would mean I would settle in here and really have business connections and really understand the situation to open something like that. A hostel, a small hotel, or a gym, or open one of the three and then expand it with time. So at the time when I first moved here to Dehong and leading up to that, I was quite excited about the thought of opening a vegan hotel here and now, and over the next couple of years, setting up the basis for that. Guess what? Irony of ironies, there already is a vegan hotel here in Dehong. How is it possible, of all the places I went on planet Earth, I went to the one place that already has a vegan hotel? Now, I'll come back to just how vegan it is or how vegan it isn't. I'm going to share some photographs with you guys of the food and of the restaurant itself, which is gorgeous. I could show some of that on camera now. I don't know if it's worth doing. It's an extremely beautiful hotel that is also extremely underpriced because, as you'd expect, the guy running it is really running it as a charity. It's not being run as a serious business. So a normal room at this hotel is 128 kwai, 128 Chinese yuan. You can figure out how much that is. And a gorgeous, enormous room, the luxury room, is 228 kwai. They're really, really extremely beautiful rooms extremely well furnished with Chinese wood furnishings, wood wall fixtures. And, they did that thing where they combined the traditional and the modern in a very tasteful way. Now, the main attraction of the hotel is that you get to wake up and have breakfast in a vegan restaurant. So their breakfast service, which is in a fabulous, extremely well-decorated room, all wood fixtures, again, beautiful mixture of kind of ancient and modern aesthetic criteria. Gorgeous room, you can hold a conference there, etc. The breakfast room, which again, I assume they allow you to rent out for weddings or meetings or what have you. Really, really, really beautiful, really wonderful facility. So, if you stay there, you can eat dinner in the vegan restaurant. You can eat breakfast in the vegan restaurant. They also serve lunch. But, breakfast is included with the room. And they have lunch and dinner services, etc. This is the attraction. They do not have a swimming pool. They do not have a gym. You can actually walk from the vegan hotel to the hotel I mentioned earlier with the beautiful swimming pool. So if you see the photos for that, you could actually stay at the vegan hotel and then have a short walk from there to that gorgeous swimming facility. However, there's another side to this. My first problem with the vegan hotel is that it's not really vegan. It's advertised as vegan. Almost all of the food is vegan. But they have eggs. Why? Why do they have to serve eggs? Just why? I'm sorry if it comes off as shallow or overly harsh or what have you. But it really bothers me. At first, they say they're vegan, and I assume they're vegan. I wonder if the owner, who is doing it as a charity, I wonder if he is a Taoist himself, or if he's just trying to cater to, if he's trying to appeal to the Taoist audience here in China. Because, a lot of Taoists, specifically in Taoism, not Buddhism, not the other Asian religions, not Confucianism, specifically within Taoism, a lot of people, they don't just passively eat eggs. They regard eggs very, very positively. They regard eggs symbolically as symbolizing, life and vitality and what have you. I wonder if that's the reason why. At most meals, there would just be one dish. So they have it's an all-you-can-eat buffet set up. There would normally just be one dish made of egg. I don't think I ever saw two options of the same meal made with egg. But because of that, I then had to ask them, because I assumed it was really vegan. As soon as I saw they had just one dish with egg in it, now I have to go up and ask them in Chinese. If it's like a noodle dish, I have to ask them, does this or does this not have egg in it? And I've been into their kitchen, again, a sign that it's a non-profit charity operation. The kitchen is gorgeous. The kitchen is palatial. Everything about the place is really quite beautiful, aesthetically, and in terms of just the size. And, just beautiful wood, beautiful stainless steel. But I've been in the kitchen, and I see this stack of eggs, You just think, why are you doing this? Why would you have a vegan restaurant that has egg? They have no dairy, no meat of any kind, and they're advertised as vegan, but in each meal they have one egg-based option. Nothing about the place identifies as Taoist, but I really do assume that's to reach out to Taoism, to people who really positively want to eat eggs, but who are vegetarian otherwise or vegan otherwise. Because only modern Chinese Taoism do I know has that attitude. And by the way, guys, when I was in Taiwan, the people who were serious about veganism, who were very often Buddhist, so Buddhist vegans or what have you, they would speak contemptuously about Taoists. They would say insultingly of it, they would say, oh, egg religion. So that's the religion of egg eaters. It's the religion of the egg people. This kind of thing, because there was such a strong positive association between Taoism and eggs. So that's the first problem. The second thing is, guys, so I have some photographs of the cuisine. So again, if you're watching this as a podcast, I think I can have a zip file. If not, somehow I'm going to upload these photographs. The cuisine is very inventive. It is very original. It is not traditional Chinese cuisine. It is not traditional Yunnan cuisine. It's not traditional vegan food from within Yunnan and China. And I think this reflects the eccentric tastes of the wealthy man who created this hotel as a charity. This is also why you'd never want to compete with him, by the way. If he's running on a not-for-profit basis, how are you going to run a for-profit hotel going for the same niche market, right? Very difficult. But you could open a hotel here. Because probably, my hotel would be a foreign-oriented hotel. It would attract Westerners. The style would be more appealing. And, of course, I'd speak English, and I'd have staff who speak English. So already I would have my own niche. But this is getting beside the point. It's miraculous that I happen to be living in a town that has a vegan hotel, even though it's vegan plus eggs. Who knows why. So the owner of the hotel, he makes his money in the tea industry. And oddly, the tea in the hotel is not particularly good. But he owns a tea factory. So that's really where the money is at. The money is not in owning the farm. It's owning the factory that refines and processes the tea. And, good for him. So I assume he's an ethical vegan who owns a tea factory and is making quite a lot of money that way. Interesting comment. So Random Bike Trip says that these days Phnom Penh has vegan restaurants, but they're serving milkshakes that have dairy in them. Well, that's interesting though. But the fact that anyone in Phnom Penh knows the word vegan is already progress. Because, when I was in Phnom Penh, nobody knew the word vegan yet. So that's progress. If they're even advertising as vegan, even if it's fake vegan, that's better than people having no idea what you're talking about when you say vegan. Art of War comments that tea is very important to Taoists too. That is true. They tend to have an irrational enthusiasm for fine tea and for chicken eggs. But hey, at least they're not pescatarian, I guess, right? Busy Bee says your hotel idea would be successful in Ottawa and Toronto. That is true. I think all of these ideas to start a small business, as I commented in my apartment tour video, they would all make more money in Canada, and I might have much better banking. I might have much better backing from the banks. That was what I tripped over, was the phrase backing from the banks, which is crucial to running a business like that, line of credit. But anyway, so this guy, I may have met him and not known it, because I met a guy who seemed to be the boss on site, but I don't know if that's the manager or the actual owner. There's currently a very distinctive style that wealthy men connected to the government wear here in China that relates to document number 9 and the New Line policy, here, New Mass Line movement here in China. If you search my YouTube channel, you can find a very informative video on the New Mass Line movement and document number 9 in China. But anyway, the president of my university was dressed in the same way. There's a certain official style of humble clothing that wealthy and powerful men are now wearing in China, which is very different from 10 years ago. Anyway, it's possible I bumped into the owner, but I haven't talked to him at any length. Anyway, so this owner, I assume he is a bit eccentric, no shade. He owns a tea factory, and he decided for ethical reasons to open this project. I'll come back to this. There's more than one ethical reason for this project, making it even more interesting. And he subscribes to this eccentric theory that fermented berries, a kind of fermented herbal vinegar, is tremendously good for your health. Okay? And they sell this herbal vinegar as some kind of cure. But, oh my God, this cuisine that he serves, on the one hand, I respect it because it's actually edgy. It is actually innovative. It is actually vegan cuisine that has never existed in the world before. It is actually an innovative, new, fresh approach to making vegan cuisine in China. It's not imitating California. It's not traditional Chinese cuisine. Many, many of the dishes I've had there are really new. And on an intellectual level, I respect it. I hate 4 out of 5 dishes in this place. 4 out of 5 dishes taste awful to me. And I love traditional Yunnan food. I love vegan food within Chinese culture, vegan food in Taiwan, vegan food in Hong Kong, and vegan food here in Yunnan. I had a special video on that. It's very simple. It's very austere. It's very monastic. I mean, it's like just vegetables with nothing else. But I do just green vegetables with garlic and nothing else. So on the one hand, I actually, like looking at it on the plate and looking at what he's doing, I have so much respect for the innovation that's involved in this. But I actually can't stand. I hate the taste of the majority of the food he's making. And most of it is not that, from my perspective, is not that nutritious. Just like the green vegetables are so heavily cooked compared to the Yunnan standard. You get these vegetables that have been cooked to death, and they've been cooked in this horrible sauce that's not really for flavor, and it's not really for nutrition or to make it more filling or something. It's this sauce that's made out of this insane medical tincture, made out of this fermented herbal liqueur, this like berry vinegar cure for all illnesses, and it tastes awful. And the most bizarre thing of all, he even puts this magical juice, this vinegar, this fruit vinegar, he puts it in the desserts. So you get like a dessert, a sweet baozi, or you get a dessert brownie. Seriously, they have brownies, but they're not flavored with chocolate. They're flavored with this reddish purple medicinal liqueur. It's completely bizarre. It's completely mind-blowingly weird. You just can't believe it's real, you know? Now, with that having been said, it's not the case that all the food is terrible. A lot of you guys are going to be looking at these photographs and saying, wow, that looks fabulous. Even if you hate 4 out of 5 dishes at an all-you-can-eat buffet, it may be that picking 1 out of 5, it may be there's still enough there for you to enjoy a meal. And sometimes that's been the case, sometimes not. Sometimes I've felt very grateful, sometimes not. But it is the only vegan restaurant in the city of Mangsha. It is the only vegan restaurant in this part of Dehong. So I do feel grateful towards it in a sense. But there are also times, if I take the time to go out there, where I just feel like it's a waste of my time and I've paid for this buffet and there's like one dish I can force myself to eat and everything else is so awful to me. So yeah, I'm looking at a dish here. Some of this stuff, it's really inventive. Like intellectually, I can respect it. He's taken a traditional form of fermented vegetables that only exists in this part of China and you would never get in a Chinese restaurant in the West. And he's like combined it with like a mango chutney and with the yellow version of his magical tincture. Because he has a red version, he has a yellow version. I've tasted both of them. And by the way, they do really contain alcohol. If you actually drink it out of the bottle, it's vinegar. But it does still contain alcohol. Like I had a sip, and I was like, oh my God. Like, I would get drunk if I tried to actually drink this. Like, you can call this medicine, but it's still alcohol. I mean, it still contains alcohol. It's also disgusting to me. But anyway, whether or not it has medical benefits, I don't even want to have an opinion. But anyway, some of these dishes, they're really edgy. They're really pushing boundaries. They're doing new things with traditional ingredients. But it just tastes disgusting to me. And it's also not nutritious enough for me to force myself to eat it. Like it doesn't contain broccoli or the type of big green vegetables that I really value in Chinese cuisine. Oh my God. So I have had a couple of meals there that were okay, but again, 4 out of 5 dishes I can't bear. And I'm vegan, So that's mind-blowing. And now by contrast, if I go to a normal, traditional Yunnan restaurant, the local cuisine here, and I can talk them through making a vegan version of their normal dishes, I'll love it, because you're just talking about a pile of green vegetables cooked in a certain style, right? Anyway, so weird. Really, really weird. I've been thinking about opening a vegan restaurant, vegan hotel, vegan guest house, vegan gym for so long. I come here to Dehong, and they already have a vegan hotel. But, I mean, it is so beautiful. The rooms are so gorgeous that I can still endorse the hotel. And if you stay there, you do get a vegan breakfast that will have one egg dish presented, which freaks me out, and I don't like it. I don't like it ethically. I don't like it otherwise. You can still do that and make that happen. Okay, so slight change of topic here, but again, one topic does segue into another. And hello to you guys in the chat. I do see you. I am seeing your comments as they pop up here. So if you guys want to interact with me while I'm recording this podcast, I'm happy to have you do so. I found this out in the funniest way. I did notice that many of the employees were indigenous ethnic minorities, were local tribal people here. They were not Han Chinese ethnically. And, just noticed that. Surprising for this business. And when I went to check into the hotel, they at first gave me a lower price. The price is already incredibly low. They gave me, so the actual price is $128, and they gave me a price of just $100. And then when they found out where I worked, the university I was teaching at, they said, oh, no, sorry, then we have to raise the price. And I was laughing about it and joking with them. I said, what do you mean? Why would you raise the price? Because I'm a university professor at this other hotel. It's just bizarre. It's just a very, very strange thing to happen in China. And they apologized to me, and of course we're talking in Chinese. They speak absolutely no English. But they explained they have a special relationship with the charity is operating partly to benefit their First Nations school, their Indigenous people's school. So already this really brought my mind back to my own history with First Nations in Canada, with First Nations University, with Cree and Ojibwe and tribal peoples in Canada, and projects of that kind. And obviously the millionaire guy, the wealthy guy who started this hotel, his heart is in the right place. I mean, it's a wonderful thing to do when you think about it, to say, okay, they're going to start with, a vegan hotel, and then it's not just vegan. It's a vegan hotel that actively employs and assists and helps the tribal indigenous people and cooperates with that school. That's great. That's so positive. But on the other hand, the thing that makes it ridiculous is I'm talking with the staff at this hotel, and none of them care about veganism. None of them are interested. They just regard this as a hotel that doesn't have any meat. You know what I mean? Because they haven't been hired for that reason. They don't have a positive connection to the movement or even to the concept, of veganism being a positive thing. So that's really funny too. I was, making the effort to talk to them in Chinese and say to them, you say off the bat, look, I am a vegan person. I'm not just vegan because I'm staying at this hotel. I'm vegan all the time. And then I would explain to them, back in Canada, I'm actually a vegan activist. I have a vegan website. This stuff means a lot to me. And I'm saying it probably because I'm thanking them because they work in a vegan hotel, right? A hotel that identifies as vegan anyway. And both what they say in reply and the look in their eyes, they're looking at you like, it's as if I was talking to them about, I collect Transformers, which I don't. Or, as if I'm talking to them about the most random, unrelated thing. Like, why are you bringing this up? Like, what? You're vegan? Why are you even mentioning that? I'm mentioning it because you work at the check-in desk of a vegan hotel, okay? And at one point I joked. I said, look, why don't you have a discount rate for someone who's a vegan activist who's checking in here, because this is a vegan hotel and I'm really into, they have absolutely zero interest in veganism. And when you talk to them about it, it seems like they don't even understand the concept. They don't even really know what veganism is. Now, I talked about it with them under different headings. But I mean, that's a good joke. Bortan made the joke. Islamazar suspiciously denies collecting Transformers. I do not. I have no positive connection to Transformers. Just yesterday, I was joking about Transformers with Richard, with Vegan Gains. We had some messages back and forth. That is why Transformers are on my mind. But no, I am not a fan of Transformers. That was just an example of a random thing to bring up, where they're looking at me like, why are you talking about this, But I talked to them about veganism under many different headings. One was just introducing myself, trying to be a nice guy or whatever. But another reason was, the eggs. The first time I noticed there was one dish with eggs in it, I had to go to them and say, look, why are there eggs? This is supposed to be a vegan restaurant. This is supposed to be a vegan hotel. Why do you have this dish with eggs in it? And the guy I was talking to the first time, but also the later times, he had no idea what I was talking about. He was like, yeah, right, that has eggs. And I was like, do the other dishes have eggs? He said, no, the others don't have eggs. I said, well, this is supposed to be vegan, this whole restaurant. Why do you have a dish with eggs? Just trying to talk about this. My Chinese is far from perfect, but I can have this conversation in Chinese. Every member of staff I talked about that with had no idea what I was talking about. I might as well have been talking about collecting Transformers. No comprehension, no idea that somebody would care about that or be passionate about that. It's easy to imagine a business like this or a charity like this in China having all employees who are, religious vegans, who are Taoist or Buddhist or what have you. But because this hotel has two mandates, has two purposes, because it is helping indigenous people and is also trying to help veganism, the two mandates conflict. They're not really compatible. And that relates back to this question I've talked about so many times on my channel about the single issue cause. Really, you should have two different projects. If you want to have a project that helps Native people, indigenous minorities, tribal people, that's one project. If you want to have a project that supports veganism, that's a separate project. And even though it's the most wonderful thing in the world, like even in Canada, that would be so wonderful to have a vegan hotel where you have all the staff are Korean Ojibwe. You have a special connection to a school for Korean Ojibwe people that as a charity you're reaching out to and providing opportunities to Korean Ojibwe people. It does not work because those people are working at that restaurant for the wrong reasons. They're working in that hotel for the wrong reasons. They have the wrong interests. And from their perspective, they're just stuck working in a hotel that doesn't have any meat. They're stuck eating their lunch in a shitty restaurant that's vegetarian just because their boss is an eccentric. That was really how they saw it. You could see they were just like, oh yeah, the guy who owns this place is kind of crazy, so everything's vegan. It's so counterproductive. And of course, this same hotel would be such a positive force in people's lives, including being a positive force for the employees, if you were employing people who wanted to be there, if you were employing people who were there for the right reasons. So it was a whole lot of really meaningful reflections that came out of my staying in this bizarre, this surreal, semi-vegan hotel in China. And like all hotels, they have to talk to you about smoking. A lot of people in China still smoke. So I did say in Chinese when I was checking in that I'm a non-smoker. And I also said, I don't drink any alcohol. I just mentioned it in passing and so on. Which, of course, is not surprising when you've already described to someone, look, I'm vegan, I'm a vegan activist, all these other things and so on. So there was another moment that brought back so strongly the memory of my working with, First Nations people in Canada, back when I was studying Korean Ojibwe, back when I was a student at First Nations University. There was a guy there, he still works there, working behind the counter at this hotel, and he is one of the native tribal peoples here, and he looks like them too. Some native tribal peoples here look the same as the Chinese. Not all of them have different ethnic features, but he had brown skin, much browner skin than most Chinese people. He was kind of big and fat. He had tattoos, and he was very affable and friendly with me. But he had no clue about veganism. He didn't care, even though he was working in this vegan hotel. And he was really nice. It was really friendly, but it made me burst out laughing. And just in his behavior in many ways, he really reminded me of kids I knew in Canada who grew up on First Nations reservations in so many ways. And I went outside the hotel for a minute. I forget what I was doing. I think I was getting out my camera. I think I was just reaching in my bag to get out my camera. And, he was nice to me. This guy, at every point I talked to him, he was really nice to me. But he just did not understand at all what I was saying to him about being a vegan activist, or that's the reason why I'm in this hotel and why I'm interested in talking to him. I'm interested in meeting other vegans. Like, imagine how different my whole life here would be different if I could meet even one vegan by staying at this hotel. If I could meet one person who has common interest in veganism at this hotel, whether it's a member of staff or one of the guests. I want to meet other vegans, but none of the staff at this hotel are vegan. So I went outside and I was just messing with the mag. I was taking out my camera. And he walked past me and he said to me in the most friendly, self-confident way in Chinese, he was like, "Oh, are you stopping to have a smoke? You stopping to have a cigarette?" And it's just, everything about the way he said it, it really made me laugh for a couple of minutes there, because it's the sort of thing where I've been so honest with somebody because it suits my purpose, to be honest, in just talking in a couple different conversations about what kind of guy I am and why I'm here. I'm a vegan activist. I don't drink. I don't smoke. And he's being friendly with me. But it still is invisible to him who I am or why I'm there. He regards me as a foreign tourist who's there for a good time, who's drinking alcohol and smoking cigarettes. And, he regards me as someone who, he might invite to go have a smoke around the corner, which is what he was doing. He was leaving his post to go have a smoke in the alleyway beside the hotel. It really brought back the memories of so many funny situations with Cree and Ojibwe, with First Nations in Canada. And it brought together all these, weird little contradictions in this microcosm of this vegan hotel. And, obviously I don't want to be a jerk. I don't want to be mean. But no, I don't want to have a smoke. No, I don't want to have a beer. What I want is to meet other vegan activists. I checked into this hotel hoping I'd meet other people who are interested in veganism, but it seems like absolutely nobody aside from the owner cares in the slightest about veganism. So I really laughed. But my answer to the guy ultimately was just no. I'm not here to smoke cigarettes. Okay, change of topic. Look, I've had some related questions come in. I guess I'm going to do this in no specific order. There's a question that came in here on YouTube. I'll just read this question and you'll see where I'm going with this. So a question came in, quote, "Is there an amount of time that you believe a person can spend enjoying themselves instead of participating in some kind of humanitarian work, working towards political goals, the stuff I talk about in my videos?" He says, what percentage of one's lifetime do you believe is okay to enjoy without warranting criticism? I'm shortening the question a bit. So you guys can imagine why he's asking that if you've been watching my recent videos. Some related reflections recently. Vegan Gains had some videos up talking about his own lack of time, his own being stressed out, his, not having time to even make videos for YouTube. And part of his problem, Vegan Gains, is the amount of time he has to spend on his dog. He acquired a dog that is part wolf, that is extremely energetic. It's closer to being a wild dog in its behaviors. And he has to spend all this time taking care of and cleaning up after this dog in his life. So how much time he has for activism of various kinds, or even YouTube, he feels melting away. So he had some videos talking about this. Okay, I might as well just read out another comment here. So before I reply, so there was another comment. I guess I don't need to vote. There was another comment asking basically whether or not my talking on YouTube, etc., really is creating a basis for people to start cooperating, to start engaging in meaningful activism organization, which is certainly a question I ask myself all the time. And more than one thing for me to reflect on here. I remember when I was living in England. Living in England with my wife at the time. Just by coincidence, these things come and go in fashions. We heard a lot of this BS. We heard a lot of this kind of prideful boasting from male pickup artists. Really what it is on the news, on the radio, in newspapers, you hear a lot of pop psychology. And there seems to be this very popular British attitude, very popular attitude in the British Isles, that men, there's a saying in England, keep 'em keen, treat 'em mean. There were all these bizarre little social theories, pop psychology theories in England, about how men should keep their girlfriends interested, basically by snubbing them, basically by acting like they're too good for their own girlfriend. And part of that, there were all these theories circulating on the internet. But again, this was discussed on the radio and in newspapers. There was all this kind of crap, like men saying, like, you should only send your girlfriend one text message for every 3 text messages she sends you. You should only give her, 2 phone calls for every 5 phone calls you get for the woman. There were all these kind of bizarre theories about how to keep your relationship fresh or loving or meaningful or whatever for the men in England. Basically, these men trying to prove they're better than their girlfriend, I guess. Basically, by the man not paying too much attention to the girlfriend and not helping her basically not being helpful. It was bizarre. This debate, it's not even a debate. It's really just pop psychology. And me and my wife at the time, who's now my ex-wife, we saw a lot of this. And some of the people we knew face-to-face talked in these terms also, about basically how much attention the man is giving the woman, how much attention the woman is giving the man, and even sort of who is providing what benefits. How much the man helps the woman, how much the woman helps the man. And people were really theorizing about it this way. So for me, sorry, in case you don't catch the segue, this really is linked to this question of being asked, how much time can a person spend enjoying with themselves, as opposed to how much time can they devote to the movement, how much time can they devote to humanitarian work, etc. And I remember saying to my ex-wife, to me this is just totally bizarre, because this whole mentality I see in England, which I'd never seen in America, I'd never seen in Canada. Maybe it exists in America and Canada, but I've never seen it. This whole mentality is based on the idea that your problem is restricting yourself from helping too much. That your problem is that, like, by nature, you would spend too much of your time, too much of your money, too much of your effort doing things to help your girlfriend in her life or your wife in her life, and that you should restrict yourself so that you seem more commanding or more important. It's bizarre. It's totally alien to me. But I remember saying, we discussed this at several points. I said, the reality is the opposite. The reality is, even if you do everything you possibly can do to help your girlfriend or to help your wife, it will never be enough. So you have to start from that perspective. If I'm doing all I can to help you, it's never going to be enough. But I can say, honestly, I can look in your eyes and saying, I am doing all I can. Right? And in my relationships with girlfriends or my wife or what have you, I have been in that position very, very often. At one point, my wife was living in China. I had a job in Thailand. So, we were traveling back and forth to see each other. And she did need help on some things, including intellectual things, helping her PhD thesis or something. And I could say, honestly enough, I am doing all I can. Now, she's a very tough woman, my ex-wife. It's not like she was begging for tons of help. But sure, it's an issue. It comes up. But whether it's washing the dishes or helping someone with their PhD thesis, with their research, helping them design a research project, because, a lot of the help I gave my ex-wife was intellectual in nature, was research-based. Whether it's washing the dishes or doing the gardening or taking care of the baby or something really more intellectual or related to politics or vegan activism, you should be in the position of saying, I am doing all I possibly can do. And if that's not enough for you, we have a problem. It's so alien to me and so bizarre that a man, and apparently in British culture this is a big thing, that a man would want to put himself in the position of saying, no, I want my girlfriend or wife to be making 3 times as much effort as I'm making. Therefore, I only pay to take her out for dinner. These were really the examples being discussed in the newspaper. The idea that a man would only pay to take the woman out for dinner once after she's done 3 things for him. Eternal economy within the relationship. I think that's really psychologically unhealthy and evil and counterproductive. And to me, I just say it's very, very, very alien. But obviously this fits into the British mentality, the British ego. And I do think a large part of the British ego, unlike the American ego, a large part of the British ego really seems to be based on snubbing people. You're only as good as the last person you've snubbed is really a large part of life in England. And people there are very, very eager to insult and denigrate each other to show who they think they are, by contrast. So, okay, this elaborate allegory, for me, comes back to this political question, which I say has sort of come up under a few different headings. And I'll come back to Vegan Gains and his situation. I think with activism and humanitarian work, simply put, you want to be in the position of saying, I am doing all that I possibly can. Now, as I've just talked about in the half hour prior to this podcast, all you can may be very limited. All you can do to help your wife may be limited. Again, maybe you have a job working in a submarine in the U.S. Navy. So while you're away in a submarine, you're not doing a damn thing to help her because you're in a submarine and she's living somewhere else. She's in a city or she's living on the land, presumably. All kinds of people have problems with that in their relationship. Same thing with vegan activism or humanitarian work or what have you. If you have a job working in a submarine, working on a cruise ship, very obviously your ethical and economic commitments are going to massively limit the amount of a positive difference you can make, how much you can contribute, how much you contribute to the movement, how much you can do, period. But why would you be in the position of trying to put a percentage on it that way, of trying to limit how much you can help? Why wouldn't you want to be in the position of saying, I am doing all that I can possibly do, even if that all is a very, very limited sum, is very, very tiny. I mean, this year, a few months ago, I was living in the school in Kunming, and one of the reasons why I wrote that children's book, I was looking for what positive contribution can I make. And part of my positive contribution is coming on YouTube and engaging in critique and discussion and doing book reviews, all this stuff you guys know about. And I decided, okay, I can write this children's book. I can try to get this children's book illustrated. And then I can say, well, living in China, being in these circumstances, being a student, maybe right now this is all I can do. But I still want to do that. I still want to be all I can be and do all I can do. So I guess it's starting from that position, not of false humility, but a very pragmatic, realistic assessment of how limited your maximum contribution can be, that you then move on to the pursuit of that maximum contribution. That's how I perceive the answer to that question. And to me, in many ways, the question is quite alien. If I regain custody of my daughter, which of course is going to be joint custody, obviously the amount of time I would spend taking care of my daughter, that will again massively reduce the scope I have to engage in even YouTube or anything else. I'm not going to feel bad about that. I'm going to feel positive about doing what I can about doing all that I can do. Now, this relates back to the example already mentioned of vegan gains. So what are the sacrifices you can make? What are the strategic decisions you have to make in terms of how you spend your time so that you are spending your time effectively in terms of activism, politics, humanitarian work, what have you? Well, whether or not you play video games is a decision you can make. Whether or not you own a dog is a decision you can make. And there are so many other things you don't have power over, right? There's so many other things you can't control. You may have to take care of your grandmother. You may have to take care of your parents as they get old and need more help taking care of themselves. You may have to take care of your kid. You may have to, work in a submarine. You may have a job that's very demanding of your time. There may be so many things you can't control or have limited control over that restrict your ability to engage in, effective activism, humanitarian work, any aspirations to make the world a better place you have. But then there are the things you can control. They're the decisions you make. And this is only one of many, many reasons why I think owning a domesticated animal, owning a dog, owning a cat, why I think it's not just a bad idea. In some ways, I think it's actually, in a sense, an immoral idea. The opportunity cost is tremendous. It really is. It's a lot of time. If you are walking a dog twice a day and combing the dog and cleaning up the dog's hair and cleaning up the dog's poo and all this stuff, if you just walk a dog twice a day, that is a huge commitment of time, 7 days a week. And the reason why I'm talking about this, Vegan Gains is not the only one. A lot of vegans are doing this. And yeah, on that human level of your personal economy and your potential to be effective in activism and advocacy and changing the world and supporting veganism, many vegans start off with the assumption that their veganism, they should be spending more time rescuing animals, keeping pets. And I got to tell you, it's the exact opposite. Feeding a dead cow to a cat every day, feeding dead sheep to a dog every day, playing with a dog is not going to achieve progress to the vegan movement. Not if you have one dog and not if you have 10. It's not. And if you didn't have that dog, if you didn't have all that time going into taking care of house pets, whether or not they're rescue animals, whether or not there are these other excuses, then your horizons for making a difference in the movement, they change. So those are, I think, the strategic decisions you have to make. Those are the strategic decisions that shape what is the maximum amount you can do. So I guess, my second last topic here, I've had several videos just lately discussing the permanent vacation lifestyle, people dropping out of school to pursue YouTube. And you guys may not have noticed, but actually there's a really peculiar example of this in the well-known social justice warrior vegan YouTuber called A Privileged Vegan. So A Privileged Vegan is also called Marine. She, for a while, stopped using the name A Privileged Vegan. She used the name Marine, and now she's back. She's using the name A Privileged Vegan again. A Privileged Vegan has only a BA. She was enrolled in an MA program and a master's program, and she actually had a video posted explaining her decision to drop out of her MA program. And why is she dropping out of her MA program? It's to join us here on Permanent Vacation on YouTube, pursuing YouTube activism or YouTube advocacy, whatever you want to say. Now, that is really, really bizarre. Now, of course, it's bizarre, first of all, because it's a contrast to all the other people I've criticized who, were involved in lifestyle activism and bikinis and, people who have nothing in common with A Privileged Vegan politically or methodologically. And yet, of course, it is still fundamentally the same thing. She is not quitting. She's not dropping out of her MA to have a full-time job. She has not mentioned having any job at all. I think, I wish her well. I don't know if she's born rich enough that she just doesn't need a job. She is pursuing YouTube fame, even if it is YouTube fame of an explicitly political, explicitly activist form. Now, there are some comments in the comment section here about privileged vegan being a spoilt brat. Yes, so she and I are not friends. For the sake of veganism, I would be entirely willing to talk to her again, do a podcast with her, collaborate with her. Because for the sake of veganism, I'd be willing to collaborate with freely. I mean, I'm really trying to make something positive happen, even when I have significant differences with people. But she's somebody, she doesn't like me, and I think in a sense I don't like her. But this is about saving the planet. This is about saving the animals. Blah blah blah. So we should be able to put those kinds of differences aside. Correct me if I'm wrong. And again, there are some differences you can't put aside. I mean, remember, I'm still like the only guy on vegan YouTube to really confront the neo-Nazis and racists within vegan YouTube, So somebody comments that she's only doing YouTube until the next MA program, and so that is not what she says if you actually watch her video, and I don't believe that's the case at all. I think it's a serious decision she made. So look, I'll put in a caveat here. There are many, many reasons to drop out of your MA program, including just that the professor is lousy, that the program is lousy. There are reasons like that where you can just say, well, it's a bad program. It's a simple enough reason to drop out, or it's going poorly. She does not cite anything like that, though. She really does cite her decision as being because she wants to do this YouTube thing, and she wants to build up her channel, and she talked in some technical detail about how she's trying to attract more viewers to her channel. So it does seem like she is making, in many ways, the mistakes that I've been warning against. And I think she is probably seriously deluded as to how big the maximum size of her audience would be. But it's a little bit extra bizarre for me because I am someone who has never had the opportunity to get a master's degree, let alone a PhD. I have quite a few videos talking about that. There's one that's just titled Why I Don't Have a PhD, parts 1 and 2. And still to this day, there are professors who are fans of my work because I went back to school at UVic. I have one bachelor's degree and I'm getting a second bachelor's degree. I still do not have a single option to get an MA anywhere in the world. A single positive, viable option. So dropping out of an MA program, dropping out of a master's degree, if it's a good program, if it's a decent program, that is quite alien and jarring to me, given what my own struggles in life have been, and given the deplorable state of Canadian academia, the incredibly poor options I've had. I don't know. What can we learn from an example of someone like Privileged Vegan? YouTube, this is the real philosophical moral I want to put on the story, guys. YouTube is wonderful and powerful because it allows us to challenge other people's opinions. I'll just use one example for myself. I think it's what I challenged a whole bunch of people who never really thought about what it means to castrate a dog. Vegans, people who are already vegans, people who already supported animal rights, and a whole lot of people had to sit down and really think about it. Holy shit. Why do we castrate dogs? Why do we castrate cats? Why do we, on a hormonal level, modify the behaviors of these animals so that they will be more like toys, more like pets, rather than having their wild behaviors? I was really successfully able to challenge people in a way they didn't expect to be challenged, where they didn't want to be challenged within veganism, thanks to YouTube. That's the positive thing about veganism. But, I think the negative thing about veganism is that for people like myself, for people like Privileged Vegan and me, it makes it possible to live your whole life without being challenged. I think that, someone like Maureen, someone like a Privileged Vegan, she is in dire need of being challenged about many of her fundamentally ignorant, fundamentally self-righteous beliefs in the world. And that doesn't happen through YouTube. It can happen in a good university program. It can happen between professor and student, whether it's a master's degrees program or BA. It can also just happen with people face to face. It can happen by going to conferences, being in some kind of Socratic dialogue with somebody. Maureen had a video. I use this as an example because to me it's very smoking gun. Maureen, a privileged vegan. She had a video talking about living without soap. So if you guys don't remember, I had a very comedic video where I was really ranting about how much I hate vegans who either don't use soap or make up pseudoscience and excuses and myths to make it sound like a life without soap is superior to a life using soap, this kind of nonsense. There's a video from her totally uncritically, totally unscientifically talking about a soap-free life. So this kind of natural hygiene pseudoscience crap about not using soap. You can watch it. Don't watch it. I mean, it's garbage, but I'm just saying. And, I watched that video, and whether you're looking at what she says about soap or what she says about politics in Israel, I see someone whose tiny shred of fame on YouTube is allowing them to burrow deeper and deeper into an echo chamber where nobody is going to educate her. Nobody is going to challenge her, where she is able to just be ever more self-confident in, to feel ever more unchallenged in. Her assumptions about how the world works and about questions of good and evil, right and wrong. I'm not a Zionist, by the way. I'm not saying that because I uncritically support Israel. However, I have a well-informed, very cynical opinion about politics in Israel and Palestine. And when I look at what she says about Israel and Palestine, it is very shameful. As a lot of social justice warriors are, which, my heart goes out to some extent. I can sympathize to some extent because I know the type of propaganda she's been exposed to. But if you just think about the meaning of the word education, in terms of career, I've already talked about the fact I think it's sad to see someone like this destroying their career opportunities just to come on YouTube and play this game that I'm playing right now. But it is also really very sad in terms of education, in terms of real education, in terms of the opportunity for you to be challenged in your beliefs and assumption, to really learn something new, to really gain a new perspective, to gain a new perspective on familiar facts and have a jarring, unexpected confrontation with unfamiliar facts. And that happens to me. That's part of my education. Even though I'm in my late 30s, I went back to university. I already knew a lot about the history of Laos, the history of Cambodia, history of China to some extent. And I go back to university. I wasn't planning to study the history of Russia, and I study the history of Russia. Wow, I'm confronted with a new perspective that really, of course, intersects with, overlaps with, has a dynamic connection to all those other, historical questions. And it challenges my assumptions. It challenges my beliefs. I learn new things. I gain new perspective on all things. So yeah, I mean, I have heard Maureen's perspective. I've heard her own explanation and her own perspective on what she's doing and why she's doing it. And it is certainly a, bizarre and instructive and memorable example of, frankly, the permanent vacation lifestyle. Frankly, this fundamental delusion that YouTube is real activism, that YouTube is a real career, or that fame within the digital vegan demimonde is real fame. Because it's not. It's none of those things. None of those things are true and valid. But what it is, YouTube is a way to document your own life. It is a way to make friends. And, I do appreciate it. I do appreciate it for what it is. But it's very sad to see so many people swept up in a sort of illusion of what they imagine it is. And it's not, and it never can be. Okay, so to end this podcast, which is probably closer to 2 hours long if you include the first 40 minutes that are on YouTube as a separate video, and then this as a Patreon-only podcast. Art of War comments. We have commented. This is a negative pitfall on the internet. Staying in a silo of people with interests that match your own. Yeah, it's a very strange thing. You're exposed to criticism, like I get idiotic comments on YouTube, but it puts you in a self-selecting crowd that is almost always just going to reinforce your own delusions of grandeur. And I see that with somebody like Ted Carr. I think I'm the first person to really criticize Ted Carr. The philosophy of Ted Carr. I now have maybe 3 videos criticizing Ted Carr. One of them is not exclusively. The video about dating advice. I criticize him and some other people. Who's going to do that? There's no percentage in it. Nobody gains anything from engaging in that kind of critique. There's no Socratic method to it. There's no education to it. There is no educational value to what's going on. And people very easily, perhaps even unconsciously and unintentionally, just surround them with people who reinforce their own delusions of grandeur. All right, to end this video, though, this is now New Year's Eve. I'm recording this on December 31st, 2016. Looking ahead to 2017, I've already mused on this to some extent. I remember a quotation from a computer programmer who did die relatively young. I forget if she died at 45 or 55, but died younger than you might expect. And the famous quote from this computer programmer is, when you're on your deathbed, nobody looks back at their life and thinks, I wish that I spent more time sitting at my computer alone. I do basically want to make this channel less isolated. And one of the easiest ways for me to do that, hopefully, we'll see if it works, is to reach out to some of you guys who are here on Patreon, reach out to people on Skype, yes, have more people come on to the channel through those kinds of conversations and podcasts, but also, I hope I can reach out to some people here in China. Maybe they're people who are not vegan, because there are not enough vegans for me to talk to here in China. I don't know, can I get the owner of that vegan restaurant, the owner of that vegan hotel, can I get them to come on camera? Maybe there are people who don't speak English. Maybe there are people who are not vegan. I want to have other people sitting here on camera with me. I do want to make this less of an isolated and isolating medium for all involved. I think there are people in this chat room right now, who could come on the channel. And, it's very funny, I'll just say, only a few days ago, I thought that my resolution for 2017 was going to be to spend less time on YouTube and to put more of my time into language research and my career here in China, and maybe into starting a small business here in China, setting up the foundation for that, looking at all those career issues and options. And then in just a few days, things changed here, including my contract. For a bunch of different reasons, my perspective changed because the facts changed. The facts of the situation changed, so my perspective changed. And really, my perspective is now that the role the Chinese language has in my life is very questionable. It's very dubious. The role that this job has in my life is pretty much a dead-end job, although it gives me a great opportunity to live in a beautiful place and learn Chinese. There are all these good things about it, but it looks like this is a one-year dead-end job. In some ways, a great educational opportunity. I'll definitely learn more this 1 year than I would normally learn from 1 year in an MA program or BA program. Sure, there are good things about it, but it's still a dead-end job. For me, learning Chinese seems to be a complete dead end in terms of my career, which is very sad, but I can weep about that later. I can weep about that in a separate video. And YouTube and networking with you guys on the internet is not a dead end. That actually promises something positive for my future. So I feel like right now, my resolution for 2017 is actually to work harder creating content for YouTube. And I'm not sure to what extent that should be through doing things like book reviews, reading more about what's going on in veganism, maybe even reviews of academic articles from academic journals about veganism. But I mean, the sad fact is Chinese is a dead end. This job is a dead end. My university degree is a dead end. I have no clear path in terms of my career for getting an MA or PhD after that university degree. So when I go back to Canada, I may be working at Starbucks. We're still in that kind of really bleak career path situation. Or maybe working for the police force or joining the army, et cetera, et cetera. But actually, I do have every reason to put my energy, my time and energy back into YouTube even more than before. And I hope I can create a higher caliber of intellectual content. Again, whether that's through book reviews or discussions of academic papers or through collaborations with other channels who are producing quality content. I don't know. We'll see. we'll see what's possible. But of course, that's why this contrast to someone like Maureen, a privileged vegan, is so bizarre. If I had an MA program, if I had a door open to a real career, to doing meaningful research, or even to higher education, none of these questions would even be asked, right? And it's precisely because so many doors have been slammed in my face because of the paucity of any opportunity, mostly because I'm a Canadian citizen. I'm a prisoner of my passport. I would have far more opportunities if I were a French citizen, if I were a German citizen, if I were an American citizen. All those countries offer more educational and career opportunities than Canada. Even England. If I were a British citizen, I would have many, many more opportunities. But I don't. These are the cards I was dealt, and in some ways they're wonderful. In some ways I have advantages, and in some ways I have disadvantages. But in many ways, my career situation and even my legal situation, so on, has backed me into a corner where YouTube is the best bet I've got. So I hope you'll stick with me here on Patreon. I hope you'll see the next chapter that comes in my life. And in a real sense, my resolution for 2017 is to put even more effort and energy and originality into brainstorming how I can make more out of this opportunity for this YouTube channel that at the end of the day is a crossroads for vegans to meet other vegans, for people to make connections that can lead to real world activism, even though I do not regard YouTube as a form of activism in itself. Hit me up.